What's up everybody, welcome back to another video, and in this video I'm going to be showing you how I added towers to my tower defense Roblox game. Since right now there's nothing we can really do to defend against all these enemies, so without further ado, subscribe for a cookie and let's get into it. I started off by actually loading into Photoshop and making some GUI for the game. I'm making a background frame which will be a clickable image which allows people to place down their different towers. I added a slight colour gradient which I think looks pretty good around the border. I also made it slightly brighter in the middle. I then ran this slightly suspicious JavaScript program to remove any of the transparent pixels, which kind of breaks the image. So hopefully I don't get a virus.
A few moments later.
Oh no. I then imported it into the game and I made a slightly darker version so that when you hover over it, it has a nice effect.
Nice.
Then I used Rig Builder and I just imported my avatar for the tower, so just for now I'm going to use my avatar. I then quickly developed this nice little system for placing down the tower, but as you can see the troops kind of in the ground, so I'll just have to fix that quickly. I fixed it by adding the humanoid's hip height to the position where it's displayed, so that it will be higher off the ground than normal. Now as you can see it's actually on the ground, but we need to make it so that it can actually attack. I did this by making a loop that will loop however long that the tower is alive, and it makes a variable called closest enemy every single loop. It will loop through all of the different enemies in this enemies folder where all the enemies are kept, and whichever one is the closest will be the closest enemy. It then deals damage to the closest enemy and waits a certain amount of time, which will be the tower's fire rate. I did this by adding a folder called values into each different tower, and it contains a list of values, for example damage and fire rate, so that it can be referenced at any time. So if we go and test it out, then as you can see, we can place the tower down. It will point towards where it's attacking and the enemies do die, but there's no animation or anything. The enemies be like. So I'm going to add a quick attacking animation now. Firstly, I added this gun model which I cooked up earlier, and I made it so that he would hold it. I then made a new animation for him to hold the gun properly, and not be standing still like this the entire time. I then coded it so that it will play the animation every time. By the way, the animation is a looping animation, so it will play forever. Right now, they do face towards the tower, but it is kind of goofy because there's no recoil or anything, so I'm just going to code that in now. I coded it by every single time the tower attacks, it sends a remote event to the client, which includes the tower, and then it will find the animation in the animations folder, and it will find the animator in the humanoid, and then it uses the load animation function of the animator to actually load the animation, and then it will play that. Now I've added the animation so that whenever he attacks he goes but it kind of looks a bit goofy because he's kind of using the force or something, I don't know, but the enemies just magically die, so I'll add a little bullet so that you can actually see the enemies dying. To do this I played around with beams for a bit. So firstly I added two attachments because you need to have attachments when using beams. Then I added this laser beam into the part, and I got to work customizing it so it looks like a bullet. Firstly I made the beam yellow and I made it emit a little bit of light. Oops, I think that's a bit too much. I then got a custom texture so it looks better than before. I then changed the thickness of it and I made it go a little bit quicker so that it looks like it's rapidly firing. I then coded it all up, and by the way I coded it on the client rather than the server so that it doesn't put as much strain on the server, and I think it's looking pretty good. I actually used tween service as well to move the attachment at the gun to the enemy so it looks like the bullet's moving forward a bit better than it was originally when the beam was just moving by itself. I then added this cylinder into the workspace to make this range circle. I used two image labels for this, one for the circle and one for the dashed line around the edge. I also made sure it was always on top. This was so it wasn't affected by objects on the map like these trees for example, and you can see that it actually goes over the trees. I then added it to the movement system, so now when you place it down it will show you the range of the tower. Then it gets destroyed whenever you actually place it down, so it doesn't just stay on the map the entire game. So now it's time to improve the tower icon because it's just like a background frame right now. So for this I'm going to use a viewport frame. And now basically what a viewport frame does is it will get a 3D model in the game and then it will display it as a 2D image. I set the viewport frame camera to the workspace camera so that I can actually change the position of it more easily than it would be if I was just scripting it, for example. And now you can see that whenever I move the camera, it also moves the viewport frame image. Then what I did was I added a world model. Now basically what a world model does is it's like another dimension where the objects can be displayed, so it means I can play animations in it, which is the main reason why I'm using it. It's also better to use world models when doing movements in a viewport frame or using lights. Alright, so I repositioned it a bit and I also removed the white background, so it looks way better now. Now when we load into the game, you'll see that it plays the animation in the actual viewport frame, and I think that looks really good. So right now I've got a label which says how much money the player has, which is 800 right now. But if we go into the game, then we'll be able to place infinite towers down because it doesn't take away any money. So I'm going to make the towers cost money now. Doing this was actually really simple. All I had to do was find the player's money, and then if they have more money than the cost of the tower, then it will take the cost of the tower away from the money. And that's it.
Simples.
I then added this text label which will display the price of the tower. By the way, I used a UI gradient which basically makes it have a cool gradient effect, and I think it looks better than normal text. And now, as you can see, when I place a tower down, my money will go down by 200. Also, my money is on 800,000 at the start because
I like money.
I then quickly added this size system so that you can't place the towers right next to each other. So next up, I got this amazing map made by JGV and Isblue, so thank you very much. We got a nice little starting base over here where the robots come out of, which is very nice. Then we got some bridges and some paths, and if we go over to the exit, then that's very nice as well. And we've got a nice little Easter egg here, so yeah. So thank you to JGV and Isblue. As well as that, I've also added this new tower, the Brawler, so he's a melee tower and he'll do higher damage. And the final thing I added were these sparks which come off, so I think that's a nice little detail to add to the tower attack. And also the bullet sparks are yellow and the melee sparks are white. But that is it for this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one when I'm going to make some tower upgrades, so see you then. He goes